Hey, welcome everyone to episode 10 of Underrated Underdogs. This is your host, Dolapo, coming at you. In virtual studio today, we've got the man himself, Brandon. How are you doing today, bro?
You know what? I'm fantastic. I got the Patriots on a hot streak, and because of Jin's really great betting, I will be enjoying some Popeyes on his dime as a result of last Thursday. But maybe for this Thursday, we'll see. Maybe if you're nice to Popeyes, we can get him to pay for it.
Ooh, yes, and fresh off a couple of days feeling sick, you're back to full health. So we're glad to see this. We're glad to see this. How about you, Jen? How are you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty well. I mean, I'm just hoping that the Popeyes I'm gonna send to Brandon doesn't cause him to have another second storm. Um, but hey, it was a good game on Thursday. If Mike White was in there for the full game, that might have made a change. But the Jets are still the Jets. I mean, at this point, like you might as well just sell the team.
Oh man, we're not even 2 minutes in. This guy's already calling for teams to be sold. But that's just Jen. Um, Jen, how about you? You walk us through the best from last week. How did we do?
We did pretty well. I think one of our biggest bets was that being a Cowboys fan, it was heartening to bet against the Cowboys, but we got Denver at +10, which was a great bet. We didn't expect the Cowboys to cover that spread, and obviously they lost the game. So yeah, so hopefully everything goes well this week as well. We did have some major upsets last weekend, but we don't expect anything that huge coming up this week as well.
Perfect. That's what we like to hear. And to get our premium bets, don't forget to follow us on Instagram at underrated FTFW. Once again, that is underrated FTFW, and you can get our premium bets there. So now to get into the topics, we had a pretty crazy week in the NFL this week. And to kind of start us off, Aaron Rodgers didn't play on Sunday due to the health and safety protocols, and has been kind of battling with the media for the past couple of days. The uproar kind of started when news came out that Aaron Rodgers has not been vaccinated. And of course, you're thinking, this is it's his choice. But earlier in the year, when he was asked about his vaccine status, he said, "Yes, I have been immunized." And obviously now with the conflicting news coming out that he's not vaccinated, people feel like he lied or misled the public at least. Um, and amidst the whole incident, he went on the Pat McAfee show to explain his stance. And that's where it came out that he's allergic to some ingredients in the mRNA formula. But obviously, people are still angry at him, claiming that he lied and misled the public. So, Brandon, I want to come to you here first. Do you feel like Aaron Rodgers lied to the public or misled in any way?
Yes, absolutely. I've always thought Aaron Rodgers, he thinks he's the smartest person in the room. And I know I'm echoing what almost every sports analyst has said at this point, but it's pretty obvious to tell that he thinks that when you're talking or when you're seeing him talk to the media. But I definitely think he intentionally misled people because he didn't want to deal with the media. Um, so by saying, yeah, I'm immunized, he knew that he wouldn't get any following questions because immunized is just a synonym for vaccine. Um, so he knew what he was doing. Absolutely. Um, the interview on the Pat McAfee show was, I'd say, pretty brutal. There were parts when you thought it would make sense, like when he said he was allergic to some of the stuff in the mRNA vaccine. That makes sense. Like, if you're allergic to the stuff in it, you probably shouldn't get it. Doesn't make you an anti vaxxer to avoid things you're allergic to. Completely understand where you're coming from there. It's fine that he sought other treatment or other ways to build up immunity. There's nothing wrong with any of that. It all comes down to the fact that he denied what was happening, and then when he was asked about it, said he was immunized and didn't explain why, and then blamed the media for not asking follow-up questions. Like, what follow-up questions? If I were to ask you, If you've been immunized and you say yes, am I going to then be like, oh, how? No, I assume you got pinched with a needle, right? Like I assume that's what happened because, as far as I'm concerned, there aren't any other ways to get vaccinated from COVID. The best course of action, and we talked about this beforehand, would be just to be honest up front. If he was honest from the beginning, he doesn't have to give us the whole story, just a quick synopsis on what's happening. Nobody's going to fight him on it. If someone asked if he's vaccinated and he says, no, I'm allergic to some of the stuff in the mRNA. So we're looking at alternative treatments. And through those alternative treatments, we are petitioning to the NFL to let those be an exemption for the vaccination status. Then when that gets denied, nobody's surprised. He's still not the face of anti vaxxer because he's still looking at other ways and he's allergic. And then everything is fine. But he intentionally misled the media. I know he's had a few interviews since then to sort of redeem himself, but he still hasn't apologized. He's taken responsibility for misleading people, but he has not apologized for it. So he is not sorry he did it. He's just taken responsibility for the fact that he did do it. And then the other side of this is the way the NFL handled it. Nothing that they did tells me that they're taking this seriously. The NFL said he didn't break any protocols, even though he was openly in a media room with no mask on, not 8 times in the 8 games he's played or the 7 games he played. So there's 7 to 8 different instances where he broke protocol on public media, and they said they couldn't find any situation in which that was the case, even though the world could. The NFL could not. So I don't know why. And the fine was a joke. Like, there's no way they're taking it serious. It's the same as a taunting fine. He got fined $14,650, which may seem like a lot of money to you and I, but relative to his salary, it's almost nothing. If you break it down by a percentage of salary, it would be the same or as if you or I got fined $5 per infraction of not wearing a mask or not having proof of vaccination. So the fine, like they slapped him on the wrist slightly to tell him, hey, you probably shouldn't do that again. But $14,000 is not a lot of money to someone who's making north of or $20 million in a year. So the whole situation is just screwed up. The way Aaron handled it, the way the NFL handled it was a joke. I don't know what could have been said, but this is the most ridiculous thing that's happened this year, and there's been a lot of dumb shit happen this year.
Mm. Yeah, definitely ridiculous. Jen, what's your take on this whole issue?
It just seems like Aaron thinks that he's above the world at this point. Just given about how he before the start of season with his whole status and everything. He thinks he's top shit. He holds a lot of the power of what he does, which is true. He does. Especially with the organization as well as the NFL. But it just seems like he's too egoistic about everything that he does. He's out there trying to make a point. You know, Eventually that's gonna be a downfall, Aaron. If he's not performing well, or something happens with injuries, whatever it is, that he's not gonna bounce back, and he's gonna be a forgotten name. And also, just looking into the future, when they're choosing, Hall of Fames, for his class and whatever, this might be a major point where he's not going to be the first ballot going in, because all the people that are voting for him down the road is going to see this as something that only cares about himself. And it seems like Aaron never changed. Um, Especially a couple of years back, he kind of distanced away from his family and everything like that, and then now this, it just seems like he's his own world at this point, and eventually it's all gonna just shatter. It's a house of cards, and Aaron is literally lighting the matches to his house of cards.
Yeah, like this whole thing has not been a good look at all for Aaron. Um, at this point, I'm not even sure how you kind of redeem yourself from this, because it's just kind of a stain. The lack of accountability at first, and then even though he's taken accountability now, still waiting on that kind of formal apology, and his demeanor throughout these interviews just doesn't seem like a guy who is sorry or who feels bad about what he did. So it just feels like, this is business as usual. Like you're still going to let me play football because it is what it is. Like the NFL isn't going to stop me from doing that. So um,
I mean, what they should have done is, fine the Packers a couple $1 million, suspended Aaron for the rest of the year, and maybe get the Packers to lose their first top three picks because it seems like this whole Aaron Rodgers thing is the complete opposite of what the NFL is trying to preach when it comes to the vaccines. Um, you know, Obviously, he's essentially out here, consulting with Dr. Joe over there, who advised him, quote unquote, on his show that he should inject horse medicine into him as part of a COVID treatment. But at this point, like he might as well just inject it himself, and then he would have been, full on quote unquote immunized, according to Dr. Joe.
Actually, come to think of it, the NFL can't slap the Packers with a huge fine because the NFL knew about it too. Because the NFL knows the list of all the players who are vaccinated and unvaccinated, on top of which Aaron appealed the decision and then appealed the decision again. So they dealt with Aaron Rodgers trying to prove his immunization twice, get denied twice, and then go into the league and break protocol. So they're also in on this scenario too. They're partially to blame because how easy would it have been for them to give them a slap on the wrist earlier in the season, like, hey, you can't do this shit, because we're on the hook for it too. Because they knew the entire time. The organization knew, Aaron Rodgers knew, the NFL knew. Um, so they can't really like they can slap the fine, but it's immediately going to fall back on the NFL because they knew as well.
mm. So it's just, yeah, it's fuckery from the top down, pretty much is what you're telling me here. So I guess let's move on to the next topic. Then next big news in the NFL over the past week was regarding OBJ. Last week we kind of spoke about the incident with OBJ and the Browns. Essentially, since Odell Beckham Jr. got to Cleveland, there just hasn't been any chemistry with between himself and Baker. And in Spurs, the team has actually played well without Odell. And on Thursday last week, the Browns decided to part ways with the wide receiver after his dad posted some videos of Baker either not passing to Odell or missing the target when Odell was open. And as of today, actually, Odell has cleared waivers and is now officially a free agent and can sign wherever he pleases. So my question to you here, Jen, is where is Odell going to land, or where's going to be that best spot for him to go to?
I mean, just judging from everything that is being seen out there, I think the best place for him to go would be the Green Bay Packers. I know that Brendan's going to disagree with me because he thinks the Patriots would be always the way to go, but like you already got a dysfunctional quarterback over there. You add Odell, perfect match. At this point, and also they need a number one wide receiver besides Devontae Adams. Obviously, I don't hope he goes to the Green Bay Packers because obviously, come playoff time, that's going to be something crucial. I hope he joins the team, something like the Patriots, where he can, essentially get his careers die there, along with, all the dirty tactics that Bill has taught his players, especially after what Mac Jones did um, to Burns on Sunday, with that dirty tackle, purposely trying to twist the necks. I mean, I'll be surprised if Mac Jones isn't out the next week with 40 concussions from all the hits that he's going to take from the Browns, and he's playing Miles Garrett, and that guy's going to have a grudge against him.
Mm, Brandon, uh, Patriots, or are you thinking elsewhere for OBJ?
First of all, I'd like to say that Mac Jones needs to watch out for Miles Garrett swinging helmets. Uh, Speaking of dirty tactics,
Hey, as long as Mac Jones doesn't call him the N word, like what Rudolph did, then he's not going to swing the helmets. But then again, we never know.
Yeah. Either way, that's a tough D to play against. But yeah, hopefully there's no swinging helmets that game. Mac Jones has been doing well, so I'd like to see that stay. And before agree that Odell should go to the Patriots, I don't know if this is where he will land. And by the Twitter universe, it seems like that may not be the case, but I am just full on manifesting this into the world by saying, OBJ, come to the Patriots, please. Last week, you gave me 5 seconds, which turned into 5 minutes explaining what the Patriots need at the deadline. The number one highlight was a true number one receiver. And we could get just that in OBJ because he is better than the ones we have. Um, he might not be, top two receiver in the NFL, but he can be a number one in a good system. So I would like to see him come here. Hopefully, no one bids more than the vet minimum because our cap is pretty tight. Uh, but we know he loves Bill Belichick. OBJ, now is your chance. You are a free man. You can pick wherever you want to go, and Bill Belichick is asking for you. So take the opportunity, go play with the Patriots. But that team's heating up. A number one wide receiver would be just the thing that they need to make a serious run to make the playoffs this year. So OBJ, come to the Patriots.
Not if they don't have a starting quarterback after Miles Garrett plows through Mac Jones with 40 different sacks and 40 fumbles. You know for a fact that Miles Garrett is gonna try his best to rip his head off.
I don't know if you saw the play. There was a play against the Chargers where somebody ran to hit him after the whistle, and the entire O line was just ready to throw down. So I think he's decently respected in the locker room and decently protected by the O line that they wouldn't just like close their hands and wait for Miles Garrett to do his thing. I think they're going to put up a fight. I think they're aware of the situation. And I think they've got his back. So I don't think he's going to get injured. I don't think he makes this dirty play. He's certainly not the only player in the NFL who's ever made a dirty play. So I don't know why this one is being highlighted as much as the other dirty ones that go unnoticed. Um, but I think he'll be fine. Um, they are they are poised to potentially win that game too.
And actually, there's one other spot that you guys didn't really touch on, that I've been seeing and hearing a lot about, in terms of OBJ's landing spots, and that's the Saints. So, Brennan, do you mind kind of walking me through how you see that fit working out if he does end up with the Saints?
It's another spot where he'd be a number one receiver. Obviously, with Michael Thomas out for the year with his ankle, he'd have a chance to step in and be that number one receiver. But in terms of who he'd be playing with, um, he wants to play with a good quarterback, which is why the Packers are a favorite. I think the Chiefs are also thrown in the mix. So him going to those places would give that wish of being with an elite quarterback, obviously, Aaron Rodgers or Patrick Mahomes. That being said, he wouldn't be a number one in those situations. So if his issue was targets in Cleveland, he's going to have the same issue in Green Bay because he's not taking targets from Devontae Adams. That's not happening. And he's not taking targets from Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill. He's not going to come in there and all of a sudden be the number one over Tyreek, Travis Kelce, or Devontae Adams. So I think the reason that we're having this conversation today and the reason we're not discussing why he chose a landing spot is I think those exact things. He's trying to balance. Do I make the decision of going to play with a solid quarterback and making a Super Bowl run? Or do I still want to be that number one guy and redeem myself? Because if he plays in a situation like the Saints or the Patriots, but if you're going to the Saints, you might as well come to the Patriots because our quarterback is better. Um, then he'd be that number one. But if he goes to the other ones, he's potentially fighting for a Super Bowl, but he has to adjust to the fact that he's not going to get those targets. So I think it just depends on what he wants. Obviously, he's in no rush to make this decision because he was released on Monday and he is still it's Wednesday night when we're recording this, and he hasn't made a decision yet. Um, so I mean, similar to the Patriots, except their quarterback is not as good as ours. So that's why I don't think so. But who knows?
Yeah, I guess we'll find out soon enough from OBJ where he's going to continue the at least continue his career for the near future. Moving on, the next topic that we have is regarding Sunday's game. The Denver Broncos handed the Cowboys their second loss of the season. I'll repeat that again. The Denver Broncos handed the Cowboys the second loss of the season. And following that victory, the Broncos head coach Vic Fangio had some things to say. He mentioned that he now has the secret to beating the boys. Of course, this is something. It's easier to see something like this after a victory. So, Brandon, I want to come to you here. Do you think he's actually found the secret to beating the Cowboys, or did he just stumble across a lucky win there?
I think he stumbled across a bad game.
Mm.
To be honest with you, I've never really bought into the Vic Fangio genius. I've never really been a fan of Vic Fangio. He's just kind of been a coach. Um, and so I don't know if he is claiming to be a mastermind on offense or defense of creating a scheme to beat a hot Cowboys team. I think he just got stuck with a decent game plan and a bad game by the other team. Um, because I don't think the Cowboys played near as well as they could have. But like I said, I'm not buying into the Vic Fangio genius, so I think he's just being cocky. I think he's taking his chance to dunk on someone because he's not going to get many chances to. I did a little digging into why the Vic Fangio genius aura exists, and it's entirely around his quote unquote defensive mind. Um, but to put it into context, his defensive mind was built around Ray Lewis, Rod Woodson, Terrell Suggs, Ed Reed, Navarro Bowman, and Akeem Hicks, Khalil Mack, Kyle Fuller, Eddie Jackson. These guys are all Pro Bowl or first team All Pro or both who have played under a Vic Fangio defense. There's never been a time where he's had a plus record or a positive record in the NFL where he hasn't had 4 All Pros. So, I mean, is he a defensive genius or is he good enough to help 4 Pro Bowlers have a good defense as well? On top of which, his 3 seasons coaching with the Broncos are barely as good as Josh McDaniels head coaching the Broncos. So I don't really know where the Vic Fangio genius comes from. By the numbers, he's about as good of a head coach as Josh McDaniels was in Denver. So I think he's just being cocky and dunking on someone while he has a chance to.
Mm. Maybe the genius comes from his recruiting tactics. But Jin, how do you feel about this? Do you think he has the secret to beating your boys, or is it just was it just a bad game from you guys?
No, I think it was just a bad game. I mean, it just overall, I think, obviously we got a little bit overconfident. Even Jerry Jones came out saying that. And also, it's just bad luck. That block punt, supposed to be, the start of a great momentum, but, being obviously out of bad luck, Denver gets a first down off of that, which has never happened in the history of the NFL. So it just seems like, it's good that the boys needed this loss. They took the L like a champion. Um, you can call it moral victory or you can call it whatever it is. But we almost have a 99% chance of going to the playoffs, and this is something that you wanted to avoid going into during the playoffs because once you lose the playoffs, you're done. So now the boys have known exactly how an L tastes like, and obviously they don't want that, especially in the playoff season. So they're going to get better. And also, it seems like, again, I think the wordings and the media have gotten into Trayvon Diggs' head a little bit, saying that he's the MVP, defensive MVP of the year. I think he just needs to settle down, do what he does, and come back a better player than he was overall. Overall, I mean, I think you know no team is going to go out there and win every single game. It's almost like the Bucks got essentially shitted on by the Saints when they were heavy favorites as well. Bucks is most likely going to bounce back. Same thing with the boys.
Yep. Yeah. So Vic Fangio, I guess we're the verdict is still out on his defensive genius. Um,
He's going to obviously take the ultimate L at the end of the year when he gets fired as the coach.
we'll see if he can sweet talk his way into another head coaching job after that one. Moving on, the other topic that we have here is the ref versus Cassius March. Not at this point. I feel like you've probably seen you've seen the video of the ref hip checking Cassius Marsh during Sunday's game. A few minutes later, Cassius Marsh had a big sack on Big Ben, big sack on Big Ben. Um, with a This was on a huge third down in the fourth quarter, with only about 3 minutes and 30 seconds left on the clock. So this was potentially a momentum changing play for the Bears, and nothing came of it because Cassius was called for a taunting foul after a dope looking spin kick that he did to celebrate that sack. Obviously, Bears fans are angry, saying that the refs cost them the game because they were only down three at that point. Um, but as an impartial viewer, Jen, I want to come to you here. How do you feel about this call? Do you feel like this call like blew the game for the Bears, and was this a fair call to make?
Oh, it was a complete bullshit call. It just seemed like the ref wanted, he wanted to show everybody what kind of power that he had. I mean, essentially cost the Bears the game, because of that. It just seems like the refs are just kind of doing whatever they want, and especially after Mike Tomlin came out and say it is what it is. That's how the refs are. He's on the fucking committee for these kind of calls and shit like that. Obviously, he knows exactly what's going on, and it's just, to be fair, like, congratulations on the geniusness of even talking of this through, because you sneaked out there with a win. But it just seems like these refs are just getting out of hand way too much, and this whole taunting call is it's bullshit. I mean, like, yeah, I understand. And, if you throw up the middle finger like AJ Hawk, obviously taunting, of course, that is, especially if it's televised, on TV and stuff like that. Um, but you're essentially, it's almost, it almost seems like the refs have money on these games. Um, that they, wanted to blow these calls so that they can give a certain people amount of edge. I know that's going to a conspiracy theorist, but it just seems
Sound
like,
like Aaron Rodgers there, big guy.
yeah, because I've been drinking that Big Joe juice.
You a
Um,
flat earther too?
oh yeah, totally, 1,000%. Only when I drive around the curves. Yeah, but no, it just seems like the refs, all the good refs are out of the game, and obviously there's some adaptation time with the newer refs, but it just seems like they're going more towards like just overall destroying the reputations of the referees in general for all sports. They're like baseball refs now, except they don't have the option to throw any player or coach within a second.
Brandon, how about you? How do you feel about this call? Do you feel like the refs were in the kind of right position to make this call?
I watched this replay over so many times trying to find oh, maybe the ref had something. I can't find it. It's impossible. If somebody can find it, comment, let me know because I didn't understand. Um, it's a load of BS. basically he does the spin kick after a sack, not in any general direction towards the end zone, so that didn't matter. Sweet spin kick, by the way, probably one of the cooler sack celebrations I've ever seen. And then he went over and stared at the bench for a couple seconds. It's not like he ran over there and flipped them off or ran over there and was talking shit. He literally stared them down for like maybe 5 seconds. Like, look, I just sacked your all-star. Good. He should. He just made the kind of play where he should be able to do that. I don't think that's overboard. On top of which, if it was taunting, the penalty flag should have been thrown at that point, right there, after the actual penalty occurred. Instead, as he's running around the ref to get back to his bench, the ref weirdly bumps into him. That looks like a hip check. It's the most awkward movement I've ever seen. He like scoots back into him and then stares him down and throws the flag. Like he's watching him the whole time. You know how easy it would have been for the ref not to move, and then Cassius Marsh doesn't hit the ref because the ref was watching Cassius Marsh, and then he threw the flag after he bumped into him. So there was like a 2 to 3 second period there where like you could have thrown the flag at any point, but you stared him down, bumped into him, and then threw the flag up and kept staring him down. Like that was the ref taunting Cassius Marsh, is what that was. So I don't think he took it too far. Like staring him down, sure, whatever, cool. It's not like he was doing anything belligerent or making any smug comments, flipping the bird, anything like that. It was literally staring at someone. A big deal. The whole situation was just strange, and I don't know what's going down, but Tony Correnti and the head of officiating for the NFL had a chance to address the event and just said, refs are human. What are you going to do? Which I don't know what that means, because players are also human. But when players make a mistake, they potentially cost their team and themselves money. They could, when a player makes a mistake, they could potentially get a penalty for yardage. They could get fined themselves. The organization could get fined. And there's actual penalties happening, albeit they're small slaps on the wrist. There's still something. In the case of a ref, they're just like, well, what are you going to do? And then moving on. And this was, I think, the most controversial reffing incident since the PI in the Rams and Saints game in the championship, which coincidentally also had no backlash. So I don't know what the NFL is doing. Every time I look at the NFL addressing any sort of controversy, it's like, okay, how do we protect ourselves and who can we throw under the bus? And it's obviously them acting in a way that protects their system because the NFL does nothing wrong ever. So that's a really long rant on a really minute taunting call to say it shouldn't have been thrown in the first place. The ref just needed to stand still, which shouldn't have been hard, but he couldn't resist himself and wanted to get in his face. So it's a load of bullshit.
Yeah, he really just wanted to get his behind on Cassius Marsh there. So who knows? Potential flirting in the making there. The last topic that we have.
He's flirting like Urban Meyer flirts.
See, I teed that one up for you, Jin. You like it?
Yeah, except he's more than two fingers at this point.
Um, the final topic that we have here is this one. Pretty much is just for you, Brandon. This one is for you. The Patriots playoff push. The Patriots started off the season 1-3, and with a rookie QB with no real number one wide receiver, things were looking pretty bleak. But the guys have been able to turn this one around with especially with the 3-game win streak that they're currently on. They're now sitting with a record of 5-4 and holding on to that second spot in the AFC East. So Brandon, I'm coming to you here. Do you think your boys will actually pull this off? Will you guys make the playoffs this year? Speak into existence.
Uh, I'm pretty optimistic they will. Obviously, this topic is just for me. I threw it in there. I thought somebody would shut it down, but I guess we're just gonna let me roll with this Patriots pride that I have. Things were looking pretty bleak, but came back and now are 5-4. So it has been a journey, and there's definitely been times where I have doubted Bill Belichick and called him out for not putting the ball in Mac Jones's hand more. but it seems to be happening. The team is coming of age at the right time. I know there was some doubt about how Mac Jones would perform, but he looks like the best QB in this draft class to date. That's not to say he will be for his entire career, just up until the first half of the season. He looks like the best quarterback in that draft, which is awesome because he fell to us at 15th. And it's not like their losses have been terrible. Like they lost to the Dolphins by 1 point, which we now know is brutal. Um, but other than that, they took the Cowboys to OT, and I'll give Jin some credit. The Cowboys are a powerhouse, so taking them to OT was amazing. We were one missed field goal in the rain away from beating the defending Super Bowl champs and Tom Brady, which would have been a really nice win. I'm happy with the way the season's been going. For me, a win on the season would be making the playoffs. So yes, I'm optimistic, but I would consider that a win on Mac Jones's first year. And it would be an amazing win if they actually win a playoff game.
Jin, how about you? Are you as optimistic about the Patriots as well? Do you think they're making the playoffs this year?
No, no. I mean, just it's it's all fun and games until they go on a losing streak. They're 1-4 at home. Like, how hard is it to win at home? Like, yeah, I understand. You're 4-0 on the road, but you've been playing with a bunch of shit teams. Just going over their schedules. For the second half, they got the Browns, so that's an L right there. Falcons, they might be able to squeeze a win. Titans, that's an L. Bills, that's an L. Colts, they might have a chance. Bills, that's another L. And then finish off with Dolphins and the Jags. So if you combine all that together, so that's 1, 2, 3, they're going to be 9-8. According to our projection, or according to my projections, a 9-8 in the AFC is not going to get you even close to a wild card with all the rest of the teams competing. So at this point, Patriot fans, you might as well burn your jerseys because your season is done.
Oh, my lord.
Ease of schedule is a low blow, considering the Cowboys play two teams that were in the playoffs last year, one of which is the struggling Chiefs. So if you want ease of schedule, you play in the NFC East. I don't think it gets easier than that. You get 6 games of guaranteed wins, which is pretty cool.
Hey, either way, playoff is a playoff, right? I mean, it doesn't matter how much Jerry had to bribe at the NFL to get that schedule. But hey, Jerry's making money, and we're most likely going to go to the playoffs while you guys are sitting at home watching the games.
Mm. Jerry, to have his money, man. Just pay your way through any problems. Um, that brings us to the end of our show. As usual, to get our premium bets for this week, make sure you follow us on Instagram at underrated FTFW. And leave a comment. How do you like today's show? Leave a comment on the YouTube page. It helps the YouTube algorithms. And give us a follow on Instagram, as I mentioned. Make sure that you subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, and we will catch you next week with the next episode. Until then, have a great one. Bye, everyone.